Smiling Friends is a show that I can say without a fraction of a doubt has become one of Adult Swim's greatest recent successes. I don't think there's been a show that has received so much deserved praise and adoration since the release of Rick and Morty's second season. With the recent level of fanfare for the series, it's not too hard to project that with Rick and Morty's fall from grace recently, Smiling Friends is most likely to become Adult Swim's next darling.
Out of the way, you!
And while, of course, Rick and Morty these days isn't necessarily bad, it certainly is not at the peak like it was in its earlier days of its run. Whereas in contrast, Smiling Friends has essentially positioned itself to overtake Rick and Morty's popularity due to it being in its current golden age of its second season, the exact sweet spot that Rick and Morty found itself years ago before it blew up. Adult Swim now only has to go out of its way not to mess up the natural buildup of the show's hype, which leads me to the core reason for why I'm yapping so hard about this show's success. One sweet word that encapsulates what adorably small-sized YouTube titles like my own strive for: community.
But before we get into the thick of that, be sure to like and subscribe to Mr. Boone's channel. It's a small act of kindness to you, but it means the world to that nasally voiced chap. Back to the video.
Simply cannot stress this enough, but I think I speak for all of us hype enjoyers online. Netflix, Disney, and I don't know, a guy who's running HBO Max in his basement, please stop releasing television in batches, please. You see, in this modern era of film and television, captivating audiences and keeping them hooked takes a little more than just dumping everything online and calling it a day like a rich, neglectful parent that throws their kid a PS5 and Stellar Blade, then calls it a day. Now, to some of you degenerates that don't treasure the nurturing love of a parent and would prefer to goon over Stellar Blade, no, this isn't how you foster a loving relationship between people. Similarly, you've got to really nurture your television series so that the masses take to it with unbridled passion. It really doesn't take a communication studies graduate to know that the medium truly is the message at the end of the day. When a streaming service dumps its property online, that's often a sign that the company either has little to no faith in the film or show, or they expect it to be an instant success online, similar to a meme. Sometimes the latter is possible. In such cases, this has actually been helpful for a show or a film's immediate growth. I mean, what better way to get a bunch of low attention span iPad kids glued to your series? One only really has to look back at 2020's Tiger King and the recent Baby Reindeer that have become viral sensations. However, if a company assumes this will always work with everything they put out, that's when it becomes a problem, as these were both shows that were essentially more viral memes than actual ongoing programs. While Baby Reindeer, in my opinion, was a solid show in its portrayal of true events that occurred to its showrunner, it nonetheless falls into that bin of true crime media that people eat up because they want to binge it and find out what happened. I mean, that tagline alone is enough to get anybody hooked onto the show. But the problem with these kinds of shows is that people tend to eat them up really quickly and then move on to the next subject of interest. Seriously, just look at later seasons of Tiger King. It's all downhill. Did it really need more than one season? It essentially just became sensationalism for the sake of sensationalism. That being said though, Baby Reindeer was genuinely a 9 out of 10 artistic passion project, so I don't want to take that away from it. But I think it's undeniable that if they released a second season after all that happened, months later or years later, people would likely be less receptive to it. This model seems to strictly work the best for true crime, but not so much when it's applied to all types of film and television. Of course, I know there's going to be people who object to this, but I personally feel like the dump all your episodes in one go approach rarely pans out as much as people would like it to. One great example of this was basically JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Stone Ocean and its release on Netflix. This was one of the largest examples of a total misfire that a company made in releasing large chunks of a show. And I know I'm not alone on this. YouTubers as big as Penguins have time and time again complained that this was the worst call for JoJo. Despite the relatively large cultural sphere JoJo encapsulates online, it still remains a largely niche show. No two parts are entirely the same and are always prone to having their own separate diehard fan bases. It certainly leads to the fan base feeling like a bunch of islands that people live on. But the thing that really glued the community together despite all the division and what the fans wanted from each part was that David Production wisely chose to release its episodes on a weekly basis from 2012 to 2019, ending with Golden Wind. Because of this, the show greatly succeeded due to the level of absolutely untapped memeability the series had. Did it have the greatest animation? No. I mean, we were still treated to bless Rat Sakuga, but those moments were few and far between. Yet most fans already knew this and still loved the show, because the animation was never the focal point of the series. At the end of the day, each week brought us incredibly stylish and funny moments that fans would persistently talk about for weeks and months to come. With the release of Stone Ocean, this would sadly come to an abrupt end, as Netflix decided to pull the plug on everyone's favorite JoJo Friday. With the fun of weekly releases gone, Stone Ocean was left to have maybe 2 days of hype, but nothing lasting. Whenever you logged into any social media, all you would see were random moments from the entire batch. No segments truly stuck on the meme dartboard that the series previously benefited from. Just a jumble of moments that vaguely stuck around in the memory of some. Those moments that people were moved to tears about in previous parts, yeah, they were now swallowed whole by the amalgous blob that was the entire batch drop. Those hilarious, bizarre moments that only could have been produced by our lord and never-aging savior, Araki, dust in the seasonal anime wind. Which was truly tragic because to me part 6 was perhaps the most emotionally resonant of JoJo's animated parts. And it came and went with hardly any fanfare and had next to no one really talking about its hotly debated ending that I personally adore. We were left hanging dry for months for each batch, which also hurt the show's impact on a wider audience. The same could be said for the recent season of Invincible, where they left the audience at a high point only to postpone a continuation for months. Smiling Friends, however, by contrast, is proof that weekly releases are truly a crucial part of a culture of watching a show, no matter how small its episodes are in comparison to other larger series. While the first season did originally drop on Adult Swim in its entirety, this was unfortunately what I could only assume a Hail Mary on their part. The show clearly garnered plenty of viewers and fans with its pilot that aired during April Fools, but they likely weren't sure if a Newgrounds user and a YouTuber with experience with an experimental Rick and Morty episode and a relatively decently received show called YOLO could be trusted with a new series. You know, part of that weirdo old guard of television bigwigs assuming that no one wants something that everybody clearly wants. But lo and behold, Smiling Friends' popularity actually skyrocketed with its entire season being dropped. No doubt due to its episodes being relatively short and easy to meme into the adult cartoon zeitgeist. Adult Swim wisely decided with its second season, with the goodwill of its fan base, that they would release episodes each week, which I can only say has been a wonderful experience to witness. On all fronts, the Smiling Friends fandom has been booming. Week-to-week memes have been made. Fan arts have been absolutely pouring from every corner of the internet, capturing memorable moments and immortalizing them in actually pretty good fan art. I mean, hell, even a video like this coming from a goober like me is actually part of that fan base expressing their love for the show. And despite what any number of maulding YouTubers say about fan bases becoming bigger and becoming a problem, this is actually a great thing for the series moving forward. I mean, damn. For all the massively memed manufacturing of Rick and Morty's fan base being insufferable, they're mostly pretty chill people who aren't actually armchair philosophers. I think that's kind of come and gone in recent years. And those who complain about fan art being of the variety, I guarantee you also very likely have your own folder of cringe fan art somewhere. That said, I personally welcome all these fan arts. At the end of the day, fans expressing their love for a show isn't something that should be shunned. I promise you, the moment you stop looking at people and judging them for being what you perceive as cringe, your life will improve greatly. As to be cringe is to be free, my friend. Also, hey, it's Gay Pride Month, so fuck it, go all out. I'm sure Zach would unironically get a kick out of it. And to say otherwise is just you projecting your hate onto the chillest gremlin known to man. Smiling Friends with its thriving fan base will hopefully stay relevant relevant for years to come, ushering in more seasons of a show that unabashedly celebrates the talents of many YouTube creatives. While shows like The Amazing World of Gumball also utilize multiple talents to produce their style of mixed media animation, Smiling Friends clearly has its heart on its sleeve for the independent animators of YouTube, giving them the spotlight whenever given the chance. This in turn allows for the series to constantly move into weirder and more out there episodes. So, I personally have no doubt that if the show goes on for several seasons, the quality of its weirdness will always be there, constantly mutating like a Psychic Pebbles character. And if you're feeling any doubt about how the show will go in the coming years if it were to continue for that long, you only have to look at all the interviews that Zach Heidel has done himself while speaking on the show. He has no intention of making this something with minimal effort. He really wants to go all out if he's gonna do it. So, with all that said, Smiling Friends as it stands is a truly special show. It's a show where you can clearly tell both Zach Heidel and Michael Cusack are firing on all cylinders while collaborating with various artists. If we're lucky, each coming week, the fan base will continue to grow and allow for such an incredibly creative show that has spurred thousands of artists to feel inspired to create themselves, to sit along the Hall of Fame of truly great experimental Adult Swim shows that have inspired others to create great things.
I'd rather be miserable working on this show or anything. I'd rather be miserable and want to fucking kill myself, blow my head off into a million atoms of red mist. But everyone loves the show. Then I had it. Well, at least I had a good time. Everyone hates it, but I had a good time. That's not what it's for. That's not what it's for. Like, nobody talks about Star Wars because George Lucas had a great time. He was tap dancing on set. I'm sure that production was miserable. But you created a cultural impact that, like, awakened people's imagination, and people, like, felt something and you made them react in a way. I mean, that's all art is, right? It's just reaction.